Morning, folks. Josh here, Solopreneur Grind. It's the SG Daily number 75. It's a cool number, 75. We're getting up there. Hope you had a great weekend. And today, I wanted to kind of reference what I talked about Friday. If you didn't see SG Daily 74, highly recommend watching or listening to it. But was talking about a quote, progress equals happiness, because I think happiness is an interesting, let's call it word or concept, especially as it relates to solopreneurship, right? So most of what I talk about all relates back to solopreneurship, working remotely, things like that. And progress, as I discussed on Friday, just kind of taking action, moving towards something. It can be a variety of things, right? Progress is a very general term, let's call it. And so let's dig deeper into how you can find progress, because ultimately everyone wants to be happy, right, in one way or another. And if progress is one way to get us there, especially through something like work, then how do we define progress? How do we achieve, let's call it productive progress, right? Because you can have progress towards bad stuff, towards negative things, with bad intentions and stuff like that. And that probably won't lead to happiness. So how do we find positive progress to lead to happiness? And I think, I was thinking about it over the weekend when I do most of these talks, vlogs, it really is stuff that's top of mind and that I'm usually thinking about in depth on my own and on the, let's call it the back end for those software people out there, techie people. And so when I was thinking about progress, I think if you want to get that positive progress, you need to have a clear end goal, maybe not super clear, but some type of defined end goal in mind, right? So progression means kind of moving. But if you want positive progression, I would think you would have to be moving towards something positive, right? Moving towards some positive end goal or purpose or meaning or vision of some sort. Which begs the easy question, well, what is yours, right? What is your vision, purpose, mission, everything like that? And so what I've found over the last 2 years is when I am in a funk, or let's say when you're not feeling your best, when you're not feeling happy, it's part of the reason could be you're just kind of wandering, right? You're just going day to day. You're off track. You're not progressing. You don't have some type of greater vision or mission that you're working towards. And so the quickest way is to find it, right? To find one, to find multiple. You don't need one. So I've been reading a lot of biographies and autobiographies of these awesome, successful business people: Phil Knight, Steve Jobs, Richard Branson, Jack Ma from Alibaba, the list goes on. These guys basically dedicated their lives to one kind of mission, one type of vision, right? Phil Knight built Nike. Steve Jobs built Apple, then built Pixar, then went back to Apple. You know what I mean? These are like almost about as clear and linear as you can get, not in sense of the story and their journey being linear, in the sense that they had this one grand thing that they were envisioning, they were looking at, they were dreaming about, and they spent all their time ruthlessly pursuing them. And if we can kind of replicate that, maybe not to that extreme, or maybe we can have more than one, right? Because they pretty much sacrificed almost everything else for that one thing, which is not necessarily the wrong way to do it, right? They turned out pretty well. But if we could have one or two or three things that are like that, and know that that's what we're working towards, then I think that will give us that progression, that sense of accomplishment, and that happiness. So let me go into something more of a specific example. Like those guys I just mentioned, they had one thing they basically dedicated their lives towards. That's one way to do it, right? You could have multiple things. You could have a services business that you're building here, and a personal brand that you're building on the side as well, right? That's two things. You can be working towards both of them. You can spend 80% of your time on one and 20 on the other, or 50-50, or 99-1, something like that. You could have a 9-to-5 job you're super passionate about, and then do woodworking on the side, you know what I mean, that you're super passionate about too, building cool furniture, or whatever it is, tree houses, anything, right? It's not the thing that's so important. It's the fact that you can recognize said thing and work towards it, and feel the progression, and have that vision of accomplishing it. You could have more things, right? You could be a sports coach on the side. You could be a sports coach full time. Family could be super, a super big vision and focus of yours. For a lot of parents, it probably is by default, right? I've never been a parent before, but I would imagine it takes a heck of a lot of work and time and thought and energy. So maybe you don't know what they are, or maybe you just haven't recognized them, right? So probably one of those two things. If you're in a funk, if you're not super happy, you may not be working towards some greater purpose, some greater vision, in which case you should try and find it. You may not find it tomorrow. It may take you months or years to find it, but you should do things that will help you uncover what they are. And on Wednesday, episode SG Daily 76, I'm going to go into more detail on how I think you can take action to find those purposes, those missions and stuff like that. But for the purposes of this episode, I think you either want to think about whether you are pursuing one right now, or whether you just haven't recognized them, right? Because one way is you might not have one, which is fine. Go find it. We'll talk in episode 76 about how. But another reason could be maybe you're just so boggled down by a bunch of things, or too many things, or too much stress, that you've lost focus, or haven't even recognized what those are, right? Maybe family is a big mission of yours, but because of how much time and energy it takes, you've kind of lost the ability to recognize that mission, due to stress, lack of sleep, stuff like that. Maybe you started a company with this grand vision, but due to stress or lack of funding or poor performance, you've kind of lost the appreciation for that vision, and you need to recognize it again. So I would say, for the purposes of this episode, if you want to find that progress that leads towards happiness that we were speaking about last week, start thinking about whether you are or aren't progressing towards something. And if you're not, find out what it is. So we're going to talk in the next episode. I've hit the 7-minute mark. I usually don't like going beyond there for these kind of snippet vlogs and audio blogs. But that's my thinking around that. And yeah, I'm actually excited about this theme for the week, because it's super important, right? Especially as a solopreneur, where we have to find our own motivation, our own journeys and stuff like that. Anyways, hope you had a good weekend. I'll talk to you on Wednesday. Have a good one.